Well, good afternoon. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Naomi Secor, Global Managing Director with SSO and Research and Analytics, and I'm really excited to be here and introduce this webinar on leveling up your shared services GBS with the power of workforce analytics. And this is a phenomenal topic. Workforce analytics is revolutionizing business services, unlocks data-driven insights to improve performance, efficiency, talent management. And today, we're going to engage in a candid discussion about how leaders can drive their organizations forward through the use of workforce data. For those that are joining us for the first time, I do have just a couple of housekeeping items to make sure you have a very seamless and fun experience. We want to make this interactive. So we encourage you to use the chat, ask questions to our speakers. We have reserved time at the end of this webinar to address them. Our sponsor, Sapience, has put a phenomenal resource on the topic in our digital gift bag for you, so make sure you do get a hold of that before you leave. Also, we have put our speaker bios and a connection to LinkedIn, so we encourage you to network and do connect with them. And if you need any questions at all, you can use the help button located on the console. So with that, I am very, very excited to introduce our speakers with us today. And we have Bradley Killendorf, who's CEO from Sapience, our sponsor, and also Steve Sharlow, who's the VP of Global Shared Services at Brinks. So welcome to you both.
Thank you, Naomi. Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi. Pleasure to be here. And thank you for everybody taking the time to come here today. Hopefully we'll keep this interesting and dynamic and exciting and get a lot of participation from everyone.
Excellent. So when you're also, in addition to great content that you're going to learn from our speakers, you're going to get some phenomenal data as well. So we are going to start with our first polling question. And please, if we could have everyone take the poll, we're going to give it about 40 seconds or so. How important do you believe workforce analytics is for optimizing shared services operations? Here we go. I see the responses coming in well. Let us know. We'll give it another 15 seconds or so. I have a feeling the group's going to think this is pretty important. Just a hunch. All right. Let's take a look. All right.
No, not critical, but very important.
All right, so Steve, Brad, what do you think about this, the response here?
To believe it or not, obviously for us as being kind of the global leader in workforce analytics, usually when we do these types of polling, there's a certain amount of people that just aren't aware of what this capability is, what it does, you know, what the benefits are, et cetera. So I got to tell you, as the CEO of Sapience, it's really super encouraging to have 15.8% saying this is critical and almost 74% saying very important. And I would say that's consistent with what we're seeing as a business right now with regards to demand. Yeah, there's a lot of companies, I think, are understanding this is a very, very important part of any go-forward strategy.
Yeah, Naomi, I would agree with Brad. I mean, as a practitioner, I think the only reason I would suggest that it's not 100% might be that there's other pressing matters in terms of shared services leaders that are more prioritizing revenue, costs, perhaps some pressing matters from executive leadership, but it's darn close. So I'm not surprised to see it at 74%.
Yeah.
Well, great numbers. And so Stephen, you want to go through, I know you're going to take us through a few things around Brinks here.
Yeah, but first, I want to thank SSON for facilitating discussion today, of course, and Brad, obviously, thanks for inviting me to speak about our journey. What I wanted to do for your audience is share a little bit about Brinks. I'm assuming most know who we are, but for those on the call who may not, I think we're in most markets around the world. We're probably best known, as you can see here on the slide, from television or the action-packed Hollywood films. Our armored trucks are driving around the neighborhoods. As you can imagine, yes, this is a serious business. Going back to 1859, Brinks has been a household name, a market leader in cash and valuable security management, starting back in Chicago with the horse and buggy, to our first armored vehicle, fact check here, in 1923. But what many don't know, in addition to cash, we're also called to transport gems, metals, other precious items from point A to point B, and process customer bank deposits today. So overall, our mission is to secure global commerce, and we operate in many countries around the world. The other thing to note, and I'd like to share, is Brinks has been evolving from our traditional cash in transit, guns and trucks business to the really the growing digital space. We're expanding our business to support digital retail solutions and ATM managed services around the world. And today, Brinks boasts of 66,000 employees, and I think we've now reached close to 100 countries around the world. We're not in every country, but we're in many. Another fun fact, we transported the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl tickets back in 2013. Any Ravens fans on the call, that's a valuable thing. And for others, maybe not. And another interesting, back in the 1950s, Brinks safely transported the Hope Diamond, which is valued at $350 million. The most exciting thing to kind of leave you all with Brinks, I'll link it to kind of why we're partnering with Sapience. Brinks has embarked recently on a complete transformational journey. A lot of organizations have either been through those a few times or thinking about transforming their organization. But we're very serious about not only expanding into the digital markets, but advancing our customer operations, our technology capabilities to fuel our growth strategy. And shared services is very, very much part of that mission. But I'd like to also share with you on the next slide, when we look specifically at global shared services, we operate today out of Bogota, Colombia, and Lisbon, Portugal. We employ over 500 employees. We've been working hard the last couple of years to evolve what has historically been only finance in a lift and shift model, very unstructured staffing model, really, that shockingly started 8 years ago in Miami, Florida, one of our lower cost markets in the US, right? Kidding. But 8 years ago, they realized we needed to do better. And they moved to Bogota, Colombia, which I have to say I'm very, very pleased with today. Since I joined Brinks about 3 years ago, I've been really on a growth mode due to our value proposition, our very, very strong operational performance, the agility that we've been able to respond to the business, and the talent that we have in Colombia and in Portugal. So since 2021, 2022, we've built out a very disciplined, multifunctional portfolio that now includes over 130 services supporting 23 countries. We're we're very proud to speak really and highlight our employee engagement and the diversity of our people. We've invested heavily in our employees' well-being as we look to evolving our teams to a more adaptive organization that can continue to respond to new demand and really create new career opportunities. The last 2 years and why we link to the mission of data and analytics, particularly around workforce, is that we're not just focused on innovation and growth, but productivity. In 2023, we launched our center office to drive strategy, continuous improvement, advance our services. We're very far from being done, but as I mentioned, our business is also aiming to leapfrog Brinks to the next level. As it relates to this particular partnership, that pressure and that relentless drive to sustain value over time is also combined with our attention to reimagine flexible work, which is really, we're targeting that to attract and retain talent. And because of both of those missions, we saw that we had a need to have robust insights to manage capacity. I mean, we are a people business after all. So, we look to provide our people managers with the right tools to enable them to manage their assets and drive productivity. So what we have found was that we did not have the means to easily get to the data, and frankly, didn't really know where to start. Our partnership with Workforce Analytics made this very easy and enabled us to quickly close the gap in our model, of course, that we will be leveraging in years to come in our shared services toolkit. So that's really the background on Brinks and our shared services journey, and why we are partnering with Workforce Analytics. Now, I believe, Naomi, we want to cue, I think, the second polling question.
Yes, let's do that. And what a great transformation journey. So congratulations. This is our next poll. Are your leaders currently challenged in gathering meaningful insights on capacity, employee performance, work distribution, and location data about your shared services organization? And while we're waiting for everyone to take the poll, also just a reminder, do put your questions into the chat. We would love to hear from you. Okay, we'll give it another 10 seconds. I still see there's plenty that still need to take the poll. Let us know. Don't be shy. Okay, so let's take a look at the results, and then looking forward to your commentary. All right, looks like we've got over 60% sometimes. 40%, yes, always.
Yeah, well, I can speak to our broader customer base, and I think Stephen certainly has his own experience in terms of what they're seeing at Brinks. But I think this is very consistent with what we see across our customer base, that there is a lack of accessible, usable data that can easily be turned into insights. And so in my simple brain, I often want to talk about, what the magic of Sapience is not necessarily, the fact that we've directed this towards workforce analytics. It's really our ability to be able to, collect data, structure that data, and provide that in such a way that a company can actually make sense of it and find very useful insights from it. And oh, by the way, do that in a way that protects the employee's privacy and, does it in a very ethical, humane way, which is a whole different discussion, but is one of the hallmarks of Sapience and what our whole mission and purpose as a company is. And so I think it's a very, poll results would be very consistent. What we see is companies know that they need to get this data. They don't understand that there's a cost-effective, much easier way with what company like ours in order to get after that data, to unlock those insights, to create a much better operating environment.
Yeah. Naomi, I would add, I think what I see in the industry is organizations are at various levels of their maturity. And when you split out the questions, an interesting question, because there's certain data points in that question that are probably easier to get to than others. Some organizations have already gone down the road and matured into Power BI and an analytical COE, while others are not. I think we're just scratching the surface on analytics today, and a lot of companies are challenged with that. I can tell you that while employee performance is something we can easily get to as an organization of Brinks, capacity and work distribution, completely blind. And so I'm actually pleased to see that the results on the survey, that at least within the shared services industry, nobody said this is not a priority. That's actually good to see, because that means that the shared services industry is doing well. We're thinking about the right things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Well, so let me ask a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Which it's kind of a multi-part question, but I think probably what most of the people on here would love to hear about, which is, can you give a general idea of what's been your experience implementing workforce analytics? Did you have goals before, and stepping in and starting to try to leverage this workforce analytics? And did you have key challenges that you either internally, externally, that you had to overcome in order to make this kind of vision successful?
Yeah. First, Brad, I would say that our teams found the experience very straightforward and one of the easiest solutions to implement. It was essentially a plug and play. The very, very well structured rigor around the implementation. I do want to mention, though, that in the experience, and one of the things that we called out very early, I think the alignment with cybersecurity team, your privacy lawyers, as well as your specific country labor attorneys, has to be very much embedded in the process. I think, Brad, you were alluding to that earlier in this call. I would say do this early before you get too far down the road, which we did. We did it very early, actually before we actually signed the contract. So that made the experience overall very seamless, because when we got to the contract stage, we were going through hurdles and asking and answering different questions. We made sure we had checked those boxes before we actually started the work. Our goal, my goal really, Brad, was simple. Provide me with an initial lens into what our teams are doing on and off Brinks technology, period. Now, what could come out of that, I didn't have expectations really, because I didn't know where the data was going to take me. But at minimum, I would expect that if we were going to have this effort and collect the data, then we're going to use it for some quick adjustments in either performance or behavior, and capacity. And over time, as we found those initial adjustments and the positive benefits from it, leverage it as part of our everyday tools to optimize capacity over time. So, and that's essentially where we are right now. We haven't experienced any big issues. We did have some internal resource. the other point to mention, I think, on experience for your audience, I would recommend starting with a proof of concept. We did that with your team, Brad, with a small group within Brinks. It made things easier. We actually leveraged that to showcase to our leadership team the power of the tool, which created excitement, which was then very, very easy to expand across our complete labor pool. The last comment, Brad, quick, for the sake of time. I would recommend your audience, if they go down this road, bring in their trusted senior operation leaders on their teams. And this is really more for transparency, so they feel part of the process. Of course, this needs to be balanced with a need to know, because obviously the data suggests or could suggest that the organization is trying to spy on them, and really we sort of got past that that notion by ensuring that our senior leaders on our shared services organization were involved, and they knew we were going to be doing this. We wanted our managers to understand that the tool is to help them manage their workload. And as you know, because we're in the cash business, cybersecurity, really security overall, is very, very much part of our culture. But we were not deploying the tool necessarily to spy on our group, but more to be it was a positive tool and a positive message of why we were deploying it. But overall, that's all those things I would suggest, and really it's been a overall positive experience for us so far. But we're very early in the go live stages.
No, thank you. I think very insightful, and certainly we at Sapience, strive to. We hate the word spying. That's never what we try to do. This is all about, I would say a much more positive spin. This is critical data to improving your operation. It's about empowering managers. It's about creating flexible work schedules, finding worker burnout, so on and so forth, which, is where we will, or where we try to direct the conversation. Frankly, I'd say 100% of our clients are using it in that, exact same way and fashion. Let me ask what one part is I know it's early, but do you have any early benefit statements or any value that you're getting today that you weren't getting before, or you foresee getting in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, Brad, I can tell you our leadership is paying very close attention to the benefits and the results of this, because when they saw the data, the rich data we were getting back, which had shown for us significant opportunity in terms of potential productivity leakage, but I would say opportunity in us shifting resources and really addressing performance, not just low performers, but also high performers. As I mentioned on the earlier slide, we've decided as a shared services organization to work hybrid. Most of our employees primarily work remote. So we really needed the visibility to manage our teams in terms of what was happening on and off technology. And yes, so far we have seen significant opportunity that we are currently validating and working through. A couple other things that we've noticed lately, we've been very much focused on our overuse of overtime, weekend time, why those things are happening, where are they happening. The data has shown a light on where that's happening, down to the process area and the individual. And so that's helped us have the right conversations on our operations teams, understand why those things are happening. A couple of other things that the data is showing us, Brad, specifically around technology, is what is the technology that we are not using? It's giving us light as to the technology that is being used and the URLs that are being accessed, and some of them for non-work areas, but the utilization, why is that? Do we need to look at turning some of those off? One of the most, as a global leader was how the information on displaying employee engagement overall was against what are legal available or targeted hours in that country were. And what I mean by that is the data was able to show us the behavior of employees logging on and logging off throughout the day. But when you stack that against the total number of hours that our teams are legally obligated to work, there was a massive amount of inconsistency. What it meant was that employees were accessible during the hours, but the hours used during that 8 to 9 hour interval was highly inconsistent. And so that made with those employees. So, and this is just the beginning. So we're hoping to really glean more insights and then turn those into powerful actions for our teams. Hopefully that helps your audience kind of where can they deploy it and use some of the data.
Yeah, no, that is really great to hear, and thank you for sharing that. I think we're going to run in and onto a final and third polling question here. I don't know, Naomi, if you're.
Yes, we are. And that, by the way, just great examples shared. You know, data is the new gold, and when shared services organizations can even make the slightest improvements in this, how it can improve decision support across the entire enterprise is truly, truly powerful. And so I love these examples, and this is where we need to be thinking. You know, when Steve showed this maturity of the Brinks shared services, and this is all towards value creation. Well, this is the heart of it. So great examples. Let's move on to the next polling question, which is, what are your primary concerns or priorities with implementing a workforce analytics tool? And we'll give everyone 25 seconds or so. And if we could have everyone do the poll, we are going to be sharing the deck with you and the results post-event, so we really appreciate it. All right, a couple more seconds here. All right, let's take a look at our results. There are concerns. Greatest concerns here seems to be interesting around budget, certainly around the privacy implications, ease of implementation. Okay, so we have a bit of a varied mix here.
Interesting.
All right, so yeah, Brad, Steve, love to hear your feedback on this.
Yeah, I was letting it kind of, I can go first, but I was kind of letting it settle in. I can, if I go through it, seeing budget and investment probably being the least of the concerns. I'm sure Stephen will agree that we are a very low cost, high value type solution. And so if there's people out there thinking this takes, a year to implement and tens of millions of dollars, don't get me wrong, I would love for it to be tens of millions of dollars, but it is definitely not. And so I think we've built a a very effective SaaS-based solution that can be implemented in the matter of days and weeks, not months and years, and that is very fair. And I can we have transparent pricing. We're $200 per user per year, and so that's kind of an all-in statement. So you can kind of do the math to say this is not it's not something that necessarily is going to break the bank, but it is going to give you incredible leverage onto the upside. The privacy implications is something, again, we're probably not going to be able to go through it here in terms of a webinar, but would love to have those conversations. It's something we've been in the forefront of this industry. We believe in employee privacy rights in a big way. We have incredible privacy configurations inside of our platform that would enable about any business in the world to be able to use this. I would also note that we, currently operate in 14 countries across Europe, as well as we have large implementations in Canada, which are some of the strictest employee privacy right places in the world. And so that's a testament to what we've been able to build. And I would say the rest of this is, operations, usefulness of data, et cetera. Some of this is just taking a little bit of a leap and saying, let's get a pilot and let's see what we have to offer here, because I think it will become crystal clear to you of where you potentially had blinders you knew about, and even maybe where you have some blinders you weren't aware you had, and that can all be is generally a learning process that we go through with the customer, kind of through that pilot to ultimately implementation phase.
Yeah, Brad, I would say I completely agree 100% with the audience polling on this. As a shared service leader, if you were to ask me 3 months ago when we started our conversation, Brad, what my biggest concern would be budget. And then I would agree with you, Brad, that the others here, which we did use the proof of concept approach, got us quickly past the ease, the impact. So if you ask me today what my concerns or priorities would be completely different than 3 or 4 months ago. And because right now we're past the ease, we're past the budget, it pays for itself, and the cost has been really nominal for us. And so that's a win, that's a win, that's a win. So we're focusing right now on really how to deploy the data so it does have the right impact on operations. Clearly there will be an impact on operations, and I think it's how it's managed and how those actions come together so the data is used in the right way. So it's an interesting poll, but I feel for the theme here.
Thank you.
And we have a question from the audience, if you can stay a little bit around kind of this solution. And this individual is working in a shared services environment with many global locations. And can the location of the SSO affect employee performances and work capacity to grow? How do you see that within the tool?
Is that for me or for you, Steve?
Yeah.
I think that question is for you, Brad.
Yeah. So look, I think what we've seen, and we're certainly deployed out. We have many customers that operate in multi-country global footprints, and what we have seen is each one of those areas, you may have different expectations for different countries, for different geographies. And the flexibility of our platform and the flexibility, look, the data is the data, and how you interpret and how you potentially take action on that, that data is really up to you as a business. So that's not something, Sapience, for example, we talk a lot, we're not in the judgment business. Ultimately we're in the accurate data collection business. And so we have to know every time that, we're able to successfully collect and present back, what is happening in the field of play, and then how that's ultimately, interpreted, and what, if any, actions, are taken on that is something that we just don't necessarily participate in. But yes, we do see many of our customers normalizing that across their global footprints, their business, because That's just the nature of the workforce and how they're operating.
Yeah, yeah. Another question here around, does the value of workforce analytics shift based on the type of model, whether you are captive, outsourced, hybrid?
I could probably answer that, Brad, or have an opinion on it. I think, Naomi, both models, in my opinion, provide a service and, of course, manage people. So both are equally under pressure to produce incremental value. It's just where the services are being sourced, and of course, internal versus external contract arrangements. Arguably, perhaps a captive may have a need to highlight its competitiveness more, but do so with a lower investment. I mean, this is some of the things we experience. I've experienced as a leader of a captive organization versus a BPO, and I've done both. But I think going back to my earlier point, if that's the case, something like workforce analytics is very nominal investment and quickly pays for itself. So, that sort of lends itself automatically to the natural value of an internal or captive organization. I would imagine a BPO is fueled with a lot of cash, and therefore probably has more access to a wider range of tools, and cost may not be as much of a priority than in a captive organization. And so us shared services leaders need to find those quick return, low investment, easy to implement solutions. And something like workforce analytics had done that for Brinks. So
yeah,
I would answer the question, but yeah.
Yeah, I would just follow up. I'd agree with everything you said. Just to give the audience a perspective, about half of our business is on, direct labor, and half of it is on contract labor. And so whether it's a captive, it's outsourced, it's time, truly supplemented time and material labor, all three streams are extraordinarily valuable data inputs, and they can all be captured and looked at through our system. So we do that on a quite frequent basis.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the key performance indicators or metrics that you use to measure the success of workforce analytics. So a lot of interest here around how do we measure the effectiveness of these programs?
Well, Naomi, I can speak on Brinks. Obviously, our model is entirely captive today. So if we're speaking specifically to KPIs for outsourcing, I mean, we are looking to exploring selective partners and partnerships where it makes sense. Being on the delivery side in the BPO space as a client myself, I think most of the traditional BPOs are shifting their strategic investment to AI, with organizations, with their customers increasing demand for returning this value, the sustainable value. So I think there's more expectations, particularly with introducing of AI, that companies are looking for. So, I would say the BPO success certainly lies in its ability to perform well. We know this, SLA, with quality, with right timeliness, but also I think the industry markets are expecting them to advance beyond this and increase productivity. AI only increases this expectations on BPOs, from what I have seen in the space. Brad, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but that's kind of where I've seen that go.
Yeah, so I think I probably look at KPIs different than you look at KPIs. I think just in terms of running your SSO, it's maybe more granular. I would say a lot of the KPIs that we work with our customers to drive towards, I mean, they can be as simple as, we've had companies where their singular mission was they were trying to stem 30% attrition. And so how can they, quit losing talent at such a high rate and get that into the single digits, which we were able to use this type of data to successfully help them get there. We have, all the way down to, where you have such a mismatch between, call it invoices to actuals that might be occurring with, key contractors on the engagement to try to get actual work time and engagement. We've had, around actual output of, certain measurements that need to happen inside of that operation where you can tie the input to output correlations between the systems. Like there's a, software asset meter, and I think you'd touched on before where there were key KPIs built around wanting to understand which systems are being invoked. Are there opportunities for, retirement or, sunsetting of certain systems that you're paying for that weren't like, I probably have a list of, I could keep going of, 20 plus of kind of, key objectives that come out that we will work with customers to help them try to manage. And obviously those then probably feed into more granular KPIs that are the actual operation of whatever that service is you're providing.
Yeah, excellent. So we have time for another question. This is a really important one. You did touch on it earlier, but let's go into a little bit more detail. What is your perspective on how we can leverage more workforce data while still protecting the privacy or culture of a company? What are you seeing some companies do today?
I'll take that one head on. This is a really, really important question. And let me just start it. Some of the key principles, at least for a company like Sapience, we don't screen scrape, we don't keystroke log, we don't remote camera turn on. So first and foremost, the way that data is going to be and information is collected is never going to be done in an intrusive way. You're never going to have PII information shared. We even have technology inside of our platform. I think you have to go back. We're not interested. We're not interested when, an employee, and by the way, we drink our own champagne, so I can talk about how we've used this to really successfully manage our own company as well, is, employees are going to go to, wellsfargo.com and pay a bill, or they may go check on their health coverage or go, check on their kid at school or whatever it is that they're going to do. That's like life in the real world, right? We have no interest in capturing that data. We have no interest in reporting that data. That's personal data. What we are very interested in is when employees are working, what are they working on? How are they working on that? Where are they working on that? And being able then to give really valuable insights of what those individuals are doing at work. And that's really been the basis of us. So if you start from that premise, we have had customers and we have built multiple layers of privacy into our platform, which enables all kinds of different, from we have some organizations who their primary view, they would just want to understand capacity. So, everything is anonymized. We have where there's only team level data, all the way up to just pure geography level data. And, there are settings that will meet the needs of about any company that exists out there and any of whatever position that you have around privacy. What we have found is the key is not about which privacy feature is selected. It's ultimately, we work a lot with our customers to try to make sure it's communicated correctly. Employees absolutely understand what's being deployed, what the purpose of that deployment is, how the data is going to be used. Our data is not used for hire, fire, type of discussions. That's completely different. And so, I think when you put all of that together, again, there's a broader conversation that happens around this, but it's really, really important because, we recognize the initial reaction is like, wow, this is spying. It's not spying. And actually what we find is complete opposite effect, that, our clients who use our platform, after using it, won't want to work at a company that doesn't. Because in many of our instances, by the way, companies actually enabled their customers, or I'm sorry, their employees, see the exact same data that the CEO of the company sees. They see their own individual data. It creates transparency. It creates fairness. It takes out any degree of bias or misinterpretation, the data is accurate. And now you can start to have really great conversations. I tell you, on the contingent workforce side, creating transparency with key suppliers is a novel but really critical concept. And once you get past the idea of, hey, we're gonna understand how we do this, we're really partners in this game, it changes the conversation. You get into a world where, think about it, change orders. You now understand when when your key suppliers are really stressed. When do you need to step in? When do you need to invest more? When are they not as stressed? And there's opportunities to scale back and get the capacity right. It creates a new, what I would say, data-driven conversation that starts to happen, and real transparency throughout your organization. It's really an exciting transformation. I tell you, one of the things that makes us know that we're doing this correctly is, our retention rates across our customers are so strong. We haven't lost a customer, I think, in 20 months, but right now, which is unheard of in SaaS software. And so we know that we get in there. We know that employees aren't quitting in droves. We know that managers are finding a lot of value in what they're using. They're figuring out more and more ways to create value in a different way of operating. And I think in a post-pandemic world, it is so critical. You have so many blind spots right now. This has taken away a lot of them. So, sorry, long-winded answer, but we're passionate about this part of the program.
I can tell it was a great answer, and we need passion in this industry. Any final remarks, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add just a comment too. I mean, on the end, I regarding the privacy, I would agree that our experience with the platform, everything that Brad mentioned, has been 100% applied in terms of privacy. If you're thinking about implementing a workforce analytics tool like Sapience, take the time to understand and talk with the specific country statutory, legal, employee relations area. We actually had to update our employee agreements in Colombia to ensure and speak to them really about how to notify employees. And so do that early. I think I mentioned it before, but go through that early. But the Sapience product proved and that it works within the confines of security and privacy, and it is something that we will be leveraging. And then the last comment I'll make, Naomi, for your audience, I think it's important to understand their company's culture and their appetite for information and how to apply it broadly. Data, as we all know, as shared services leaders, can be misused, overused, underused. Take the time to validate the data, to construct the appropriate actions with your teams. The product is powerful. It will shine a light on opportunities. We have already had several wow moments across our group. And so, using the data, getting access to the data, and converting that to meaningful actions is something to take the time on with your leaders. So I'll leave that. That's really my final comments. And of course, I'm also free if anybody wants to reach out to me for questions after. And I think you have my LinkedIn that you shared.
Yeah, and Naomi, if I would just give a final comment, which will be, as the shameless promoter and CEO of this company, is that, look, we are really easy to do business with. Call me or LinkedIn, get this presentation. We would absolutely, if you have any question in your head that says, is workforce analytics something we should be looking at? It is not a heavy lift to go, find 50, 30, 50 people and let's run a month pilot. And that's something I'll commit to you. You call, I will get you synced with one of our teams. Our teams are fantastic, professional. They will give you an A+ super experience. And
I love Sue. Brad, I love Sue. She's fantastic. She's amazing.
Absolutely. And so I think we will get you synced up, and we will run a pilot, and you can, instead of having any sort of question of, hey, I think this is important, but does this make sense for us? We can answer that question for you, and would love to work with you. So you have our contact information. Please, reach out on LinkedIn, or if not, contact SSON. I'm happy to get you in touch, and we'll take good care of you. So that would be my closing words.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I do encourage the industry to reach out to Brad and his team. Thank you so much. And Steve, for sharing your journey. This is and must continue to be a top priority for shared services organizations globally. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are based.
Thank you, Naomi.
Bye.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Great.